Good evening. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Finance Committee of the Board of Alders. I shall begin by reading the published notice. Board of Alders notice. The Finance Committee will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 10, 6 o'clock p.m. in the Aldermanic Chambers, 165 Church Street, New Haven, to hear the following. Item 1, LM 2025-0043. Order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven authorizing the mayor/comptroller to enter into a multi-year agreement with Paymentus Corporation to provide a unified payment system for residents and city agencies. Item 2, LM 2025-0005. Order to read and file the updated budgetary and financial reports for the month of November 2024 in compliance with Article 8, Section 5 of the Charter. Item 3, LM 2025-0042. Order to read and file the updated budgetary and financial reports for the month of December 2024 in compliance with Article 8, Section 5 of the Charter. These items are on file and available for public inspection in the Office of Legislative Services, 165 Church Street. Per order, the Honorable Adam Marchand, Chair, attest Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need a disability-related accommodation, please call 3 business days in advance at 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY. Public comment/testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Meeting can be viewed on Board of Alders YouTube page. We'll proceed with introductions of committee members, starting to my right.
Richard Furler, Ward 27.
Adam Marchand, Ward 25, Chair.
Sal Punzo, Ward 17.
Anna Smith, Ward 30.
Anna Festa, Ward 10.
Thais Walker-Myers, Ward 23.
All right, well, thank you all for being here. Our agenda, there are 3 items in the agenda, but it's really 2. The first is the multi-year contract, which we'll do first, and the second is about the monthly financial reports. I will ask if the presenters will come forward and present the information. They'll answer questions from the committee members, and then I'll ask to see if the public has any testimony on each item as we go along. Just want to remind presenters that when you come forward, you sit on the other side of the table from us using the microphones. You don't need to speak too closely to the microphone, because if you do, it'll start to click and pop. So to keep a good hand width away between you and the microphone. If you need to move it, just use the swivel arm. Members of the public and presenters, if you have a cell phone or other noise-making device, please put it on silent mode so as not to disturb proceedings. When you come forward to either present or give testimony, I will ask you to give a name and address for the record. A business address is fine, but we need a street address and a town and state, if applicable. Having said all that, let's proceed with item 1. I see our comptroller is here. I believe that she is going to lead this presentation. And I will call her forward and anyone else who's going to give a presentation on this item.
Just have some material.
Yes, if you would pass that out.
Yep.
Beforehand. I think if you could just hand
them all to you.
all.
Yep.
One more?
Well, I need. Yeah, we have extras.
Thank you. You should give one to our staff who's right behind you. Now that we have passed out all the paper, let's start with your names and addresses for the record, please, starting with you, sir, and moving to along the line.
Andrew Rampula, representing Paymentus, 1117 Sawyer Street Drive, Goshen, New York, 10924.
Roger Ruth, Paymentus, 1766 Loma Linda Street, Sarasota, Florida.
Dr. Christy Samperi, 222 Ashman Street, New Haven, Connecticut, 06501.
Shannon McHugh, 925 Roanoke Road, Waterbury, Connecticut.
Ron Gizzi, 219 Rainbow Terrace, Hampton.
Please begin.
Good evening, alders. Thank you for having this meeting. I would like to introduce Paymentus. My department has been looking into ways that we can make our financial infrastructure more modern. We did the research and we noticed that across 20 different departments, there were 20 different payment systems being charged 20 different fees, and none of them are modernized. As you know, if you want to pay your taxes, you can only pay with cash or a check. If you want to pay with a credit card, you have to do it online. This will help expand across all avenues of all of our departments, as well as to all of our citizens, additional payment options. So citizens will be able to pay with Google Pay, Apple Pay, Venmo, Amazon Pay, PayPal, e-check. And what I'm really happy about is that New Haven will be the first city in the state to actually accept cryptocurrency. We will be able to accept Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin through PayPal. So we will not be actually accepting the cryptocurrency. PayPal will convert it into US dollars and we will accept the US dollars. We will also be, what we also wanted to look at was the fees on every department. So every department was getting charged a different fee. And we noticed that the fee structure was not unified throughout every department. We are decreasing all of the fees and making one unified fee throughout all of the cities. Throughout all of the agencies throughout the city. As well as what we also do not have is real-time financial data. So if traffic and parking wants to look at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to see how much money they came in or how much revenue they came in with, we have no idea just how to see that. Those numbers are actually on a 28-day delayed cycle. So what happens is, I think it's Park Mobile sends traffic and parking a check every 28 days, but those 28 days are in arrears. So traffic and parking has no idea how much we're taking in on a daily basis. So this will actually help streamline our Treasury Department. They could see real-time reconciliation. Everything's all in one system instead of having to go to 20 different banks across 20 different departments and adding up all those numbers to see what we actually, what our cash flow is. And this will help reconcile that. And we'll also be able to have real-time data. So we will be able to see cash flow and understand what the city's cash flow is coming into the city. As of right now, we do not have real-time, we do not have real-time intraday cash flow analysis. I'd also like to introduce Paymentus and let them talk to you a little bit more about their services and the breadth of the solutions that they are presenting to the city.
Thank you. Before you begin, let me just recognize my colleague Alder Yvette Hamilton, who has joined us.
Good evening.
I presume that before we're finished, you'll get it more into the financial terms of the deal. So
I'll talk to you now about that.
why don't you do that and then hand it off to them?
Okay, sure. So it'll cost us nothing for annual fees. There's no annual fee. There's no annual subscription. What we will have to pay for upfront, and we're estimating that between a $10,000 to $30,000 cost, upfront cost, would be just to update any cash registers that any of the city departments need, as well as the card swipes, because they're very archaic here. And this will be the first attempt to unify all city agencies under one financial system and modernize our financial infrastructure. We estimated the cost savings for when we reduce the fees on, for the citizens. It'll save our citizens between $120,000 to $280,000 a year for the fees that they pay just for making a payment to the city, as well as the city will also save about $75,000 a year.
And one more thing, if you don't mind, which is it's a multi-year contract that you were asking for us to approve, but it doesn't say the length of the multi-year contract.
Yeah, so the contract is actually under a national contract that we were through Alliance National. And so that is, yeah, go ahead.
It's a group purchasing agreement. The original term for the merchant service agreement is 7 years, and then it renews, I believe, for 3-year terms after that. There's usually a 6-month notice period of your intent to renew or not renew. That's the term of the agreement.
Okay. So if the city were to, if the Board of Alders were to approve this, the effective date would be shortly after the approval, once the mayor signs it, and then it would go for 7 years after that.
That's correct.
With the option to renew.
That's correct.
All right. Good to get that basic important information out there. Anything else you want to give up front before you hand it off to the representatives from Paymentus?
No, I think I covered everything unless you all have questions for me.
I think we'll hear from the vendor and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
That works. It happens to me when I do karaoke as well. First of all, very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for having us in. It's been an absolute joy working with Dr. Sampieri and her staff. Responsiveness has been fantastic. The access to the various departments within the city so that we can really take good stock of what the city is doing, so that we can kind of have a really good feel for the improvements and the efficiencies that we can help execute here. And we are excited. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for the city to realize a tremendous amount of efficiencies, better customer service. All right, the technology that we use and that we're offering to the city will really increase the ability for your constituents to interact with the city efficiently and how they want to. Okay, what we have here is we put together some information. Some of it is just an overview of who we are as a company. Absolutely, you can go through that if you'd like. But I also provided it's a few slides here, which starts with potential cost savings per department. And what we were able to do is go department by department.
One hint for future presentations.
Yes.
Number the pages.
Yeah.
Number the pages. Go ahead.
There's a reason I'm in sales.
You should know that.
I absolutely should. So one of you asked about rates, et cetera. Currently, again, they're all over the place. Like, for example, your tax area, which is really the lion's share of where your activity is going to be, is currently at 2.5%. We're reducing that to 2.45%, but we're also having that same rate throughout the entire city. So it makes the administration easy, and it's a much easier for your constituents. They know whether they're paying a parking ticket, whether they're paying their tax bill, whether they're paying, et cetera. It's the same rate. Okay. Now, on the potential cost savings per department, what I also want to point you to is there are two different savings that I've identified here. One is if you're just you go with us and keep the arrangement similar to what you do now. So in other words, in this business, you either absorb the fee as the city, we're going to pay the credit card fees, or you pass those fees on like you do in the tax department. By reducing the fees, just internally for your absorbed costs, that's about $71,000. Reducing the cost to the citizens also is just another $70,000. Now, if you were to make a decision to go from an absorbed rate to a passed rate, okay, so for all those areas in which right now you're absorbing, and you were to pass those, your savings would be almost $300,000. Okay, and again, this is by the information that we currently have available. I can guarantee you it's not 100% accurate, but it's based on the information that we have at this point. Okay, and it's part of our initiative this year where we're really focusing on reduced cost to serve. All right, and part of that is to be able to kind of take a look at why you handle your fees, et cetera, the way you do. And over time, it just kind of evolves. And I think what you're looking at right now in terms of the payment environment at the city is that it's something that's evolved over time. And what we're doing is kind of helping come in and standardize all of that. But one of those things that kind of happens over time is you absorb costs instead of passing those fees on. Now, it was done historically in many cities to help increase adoption. Okay. What we have found, though, is the adoption percentage is negligible if you absorb it or you pass it. So if the city is looking to save money, that is one area in which it can happen. But that's not to say that that has to be that way. But I just wanted to point out that. Okay. Also, if you flip the page, there's value-added services. In terms of the cost to the city to work with us, the only thing that we're asking for is the paying for the hardware, okay? Whether it's a cash drawer, but actually, the receipt printer or the the EMV devices. That's it. We're providing all of our software at no cost. We are providing new portals so that your citizens will be able to interact much more easily. We're providing a cashiering application, which, by the way, we were in the tax office and the vital statistics. They need a new system. And then all of the training that's involved is all borne by us, okay? We make our money via transaction fees, and that's it. Okay? So really, and your numbers, because I ended up absorbing some of the costs that I originally told you before. The cost to the city right now, based on 6 cashiering devices and 5 EMV devices, is about $8,300. Okay.
You could probably just move it a tad bit over. There you go.
Okay. What else can but there's tremendous opportunity. If you, I'm sorry to bounce you around, if there's this slide right here, which I think, and you actually have it in the hard copy one as well. One of the ways in which vendors in our space are judged is via adoption, okay? And there are a couple of different ways in which we can help drive adoption. One is allowing people to pay however they want to pay, right? I want to pay credit cards, debit cards, e-check. I want to pay Apple Pay, Google Pay. But we also can offer the ability for your citizens to pay in cash, okay? So that is particularly helpful for the underbanked and maybe the less mobile, okay? So what you're able to do is somebody can go online and say, I want to pay in cash. It will send them a text with a barcode. They take that barcode to a location, Walgreens, Rite Aid, Dollar Store, Kmart, shows you my age, Walmart, and the clerk would scan the barcode. They would scan the milk, the eggs, the candy, and they would be able to pay their bill right there, okay, with cash.
There's also one aspect that I really like that's really good is tenant pay.
Sorry.
It's best not to touch the base,
Okay.
just the swinger.
Okay.
is text to pay. So like around tax time, you'll be able to get a text alert on your phone if you opt for it, and you could make a payment right there on your phone through text to pay. So it saves people from coming in, having to pay to park, standing in line all the way, out the door through City Hall. So it really is making it more convenient for people to pay through different avenues. And the more accessible you make a payment and easier you make a payment, the more likelihood that a person is willing to pay. Like if I'm in California, driving down the Pacific Coast Highway, I want to be able to pay, on my phone. Or if I'm, Yale, I know Yale Hospital has text to pay feature as well. So you could literally pay your medical bill at 3 o'clock in the morning laying in your bed if you wanted to. We want to be able to offer that modernization of a payment service to all of our citizens. And we just make it very convenient and easy for people to pay. As well as, there's also with Lighthouse Park. As you know, Lighthouse Park, there's always a line down the road and around the corner for people trying to get into Lighthouse Park during the summertime. We want to be able to streamline that line and make it faster, as well as, I know our Treasury Department has said a few times that they only take cash there. And so the reconciliation of how many cars actually came in or how many cars actually came into the park compared to how much was actually received, there's no accounting for that. It's just however many dollars they bring in. So this will be able to streamline it. You could tap to pay with Apple Pay or Google Pay, and you just go right in instead of waiting in the long line. And there will be reconciliation, so we'll know how many people, how many cars during one day go in and out of Lighthouse Park.
The second way in which you drive adoption not only is allowing people to pay the way they want, but where they want and how they want. So, of course, you can pay on your computer. That renders itself automatically to mobile, whether it's your phone or whether it's a tablet, etc. You can, again, through a cash sharing point of sale system, through IVR. We actually have 23 patents regarding IVR technology, for our offering. And that is extremely good service. We have it's called secure service. Somebody calls in, and I think we've all done this, where you call into an IVR, you get into that never-ending loop. This allows you to have them punch out, talk to a customer service rep, and then the customer service rep can send them back, after helping them out, and the customer service rep can see as they go through the process of successfully putting in their card information. They can see, that the card number was right, the 3-digit code was right, etc. But they can't see the specific information, so that keeps them out of PCI scope. Okay, it's very important. So IVR, we can do lockbox. We can again, Walmart Pay, kiosks, chatbot, which is probably, I think, the coolest way to pay a bill. It's literally just clicking through, 5 or 6 buttons. So you put those two together, that's what's going to drive adoption. The more adoption that you create, the better service it is to your customers, but also the efficiencies that it's going to create for the city. One of the things that standardizing, instead of having 20-something different credit card providers or payment providers, is the reconciliation. There are 2 things that we can do to help that. One is everything that comes in on a particular day, whether it's the boathouse, whether it's the police department, whether it's the tax office, etc., all comes in and closes and settles together. Okay, and then the city is pre-funded. All those transactions settle within 24 hours the next day. There's got to be the right closing time, but they'll all settle together. So that makes the reconciliation much, much easier. So typically, MasterCard will settle their bills, their payments within 2 or 3 days. Amex is, 4 or 5 days. ACH can be 6 days, once you validate funds. So all this stuff is coming in at different times for things that came in on different days. So that, and then you combine that 20 different times, that makes reconciliation a nightmare. So we're going to help that out tremendously by having one posting file with cash hitting the very next day. So just the reconciliation is made much easier. And you have your funds sooner.
Is there any questions?
Before we take questions for committee, and you don't have to go through all the pages in your deck, but
Sure.
did you want to say something about your company, how long you've been doing this, how many clients you have, and so on?
Sure. Usually that's the part nobody wants to talk about.
Briefly.
This slide right here. So first of all, we are a significant entity. We are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker PAY, which is an awesome ticker symbol. More than 35 million customers a year pay their bills through Paymentus. Our largest customer that went live last year has 50 million customers. Okay, so that gives you kind of some insight into the strength of our application and the strength of our company. We have 400 plus integrations. Part of this process, part of this project will be integrating with a number of your billing systems right now, Quality Data, Park Mobile, et cetera, so that we are just a logical extension of those applications. So we want to provide real-time or as much as real-time integration as possible. Okay. We have more than 90,000 places where a customer can walk in and pay their bill wherever they would like to. We serve a number of industries, and typically in my previous career, we won't name the vendor, we would say, okay, it's really specific that you're public sector specific. And don't get me wrong, you need to have that experience. But when you can provide a biller that has 50 million customers and leverage that strength and those features for your business, that just makes it better for everybody. Okay. We have 2,200 customers. 99.99% uptime. Is probably more than that, but legally that's kind of what we have to do. And we spend a significant amount of money on R&D each year. And I think the 23 patents kind of indicates that we do take that leadership role in this industry, in the payments business. Okay. I am never at a loss for words, but I don't know.
I think that was great.
Okay.
So unless the city staff have anything to add.
I appreciate the transparency and the real-time dashboard, which I think can add a lot of value and could save time in the number of reports that we provide. It'd be a much simpler way to pull down the data and have the cash flows running available. So I appreciate that part of it, the dashboard and the transparency. I think it'd be a big improvement.
And the convenience for residents, I think that's a big plus, and plus the savings that we would pass on to residents. That's also a big plus.
And I also want to say that, this is going to be the city's first step towards modernizing our city, as well as modernizing our financial infrastructure and, moving forward to the future. So we did a lot of research. We talked to, other vendors. Paymentus came out on top with us. We've had multiple departments sit in on meetings. So this wasn't just like my decision. There was a group of us from multiple departments that came to this conclusion.
So you must have done an RFP and gone through the whole process.
No, we just went through the national one, yes. The national contract.
Okay, so unless there's anything else, we'll take questions now from committee members. I saw Alder Furlow raise his hand, and the queue is open after that.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Sampieri and gentlemen, for your presentation. I don't need a mic, right? I'm talking loud enough, Mr. Chair? Okay. Very interesting. Why 7 years? Why a 7-year contract?
That's the contract that's on the national contract. That's how the national contract is laid out, the 7 years.
And so these fees will be flat for 7 years?
And the fees are lower than what we're paying now.
Okay. So we'll let the next Board of Alders worry about the 7 years after what the fees are going to be. And I see you don't take American Express.
Oh, we do.
Oh, we do.
You do, it's not on here. Credit and debit cards.
Yes, it is. It's right here.
Visa. Oh, okay, we just got that today. I'm looking at our handout. Okay. And you talked about reconciliation, my last question, if I may, Mr. Chair. The reconciliation that's done at other vendors, how long would that take to generate? Is it the same 24-hour period? So if you're
No.
paying like at Walmart, how long would that take to reconcile?
Whether it's paid through Walmart, Rite Aid, or whether it's downstairs at the tax office, all of that happens the exact same time.
Okay, so they come with the barcode at another place, it all reconciles at the same time?
Yeah, so 7-Eleven, she would be able to see through the agent dashboard that everything that's been collected up to that exact second, regardless of the channel that it came in at.
Okay, great. And I would just say, Controller, please don't text and drive
Okay.
while you're in California.
On the Palisades.
Especially the PCH, I've been on that road.
Or you may have a medical bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Frillo. Next in the queue is Alder Festa, followed by Alder Walker-Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for the presentation. Just some logistics on our fiscal impact statement. It says that the initial startup is $30,000, but then the city cost is $18,300. Can someone touch on that?
Yeah, so I just gave that as a rough estimate, thinking of all the city agencies, because this is going to be the first attempt that we're actually unifying the city. The city right now is very fragmented as far as the payment system, so every department has a different payment system. And I just gave a rough estimate, thinking that it's going to be around the highest cost, the ceiling would be 30,000.
Where in fact it is 18,300.
Well, is that accurate?
8,300.
Okay, we have a couple of
Yeah,
different numbers.
It's my fault. I changed some of the numbers. I made it better for the city.
Okay, we appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, regarding the actual hardware, software, et cetera, will the software updates be included in that 7-year contract and any maintenance? And will anyone who is working with the equipment, if they run into any problems, is there like a service number that they can call that's real time?
No, that's a great question. It's on the technology side. It's something that I didn't go into, which I should have. We're a SaaS-based multi-tenant environment. So everybody that uses Paymentus uses the same version. It's updated automatically. There's nothing you have to do about it. We don't charge an annual maintenance fee. Again, that's part of our, we make money on the transaction revenue. Yeah, completely cloud-based.
And what about customer support?
Yeah, customer support could be 24/7. Typically, we are supporting you, and then, of course, you are going to support your customers. So if you have an issue with how the payment technology is working for you, something's down, by all means, you're going to call us, and then, hardware, et cetera, and we'll take care of it.
And what protections are in place for hackers?
We've never been hacked, and I can go into, I'm not, technical enough to be able to tell you specifically all those things, but I can absolutely get that to you. But we have significant, security parameters in place. We passed a number of industry audits that'll allow us to, be able to actually work with so many of the biggest billers in the country. So I can provide that information to you.
Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you.
Indeed, we will follow up on that.
Okay.
Because it's an important, I think,
Absolutely.
parameter.
In fact, I'll provide that to Dr. Sampieri first thing tomorrow, and then you can.
Much appreciated.
Alder
Festa, continue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And regarding the fees to the residents, most of us, if not all of us, just paid our taxes that were due in January for the second half of the fiscal year. I'm an online person who pays online. So for me, I love this. But we also have the elderly who are not as savvy as we younger. And I say that to all of us. And yes, you too, Alder Punzo. But there are folks who are not savvy. And is this it's not gonna be the only method we have. They could still come in person and mail it in,
Yes.
because you still have those folks that are used to that. Okay, so nothing changes regarding that. This is just an additional service that we are providing to our residents.
Yes, we're expanding it. We're expanding the services.
In addition, if I might add, in addition to the electronic payment processing, we're also providing a point of sale solution as well. So the up-to-date, up to the second information that Dr. Sampieri and her staff will have will include not only electronic payments, but also cash payments.
Right, okay. But you need the app still for the cash payments.
No, I'm saying they can walk in and actually
take care,
pay,
okay.
interact with one of your clerks. Something that we've talked to about very, very little though, is we also can offer lockbox services. So your banking, whoever provides escrow payments, et cetera, they could actually use our technology as well to submit those payments in bulk to the city. So really every payment is coming through one channel.
Okay, so I mean, bottom line is we're just providing many services to our residents, various payment methods. Who will actually monitor the daily dashboard if we,
The Treasury Department.
only that, who else will have access to this data?
So every department that takes in payments, so the tax department will be able to see the money that comes in for tax. Traffic and parking will be able to see the monies that come in for traffic and parking. The Treasury Department will be able to see everyone throughout the city. Each department, LCI, the boathouse, the lighthouse, PD, fire department, all those departments will be able to see their specific departments.
But then it all goes to one central location?
Yep, it's all in one centralized view, yes. But each department will not be able to see those centralized views.
Okay, so they are responsible for their own dashboard of their department, and all that information goes to one?
Goes to treasury, accounting, yes.
There are roles and responsibilities that the system can establish. Dr. Sampieri and her team would be able to see everything that happened, but if I were in charge of the boathouse, I'd only be able to see the transactions that involve the boathouse that day.
So I'm very familiar with Clover, so I guess I'm just trying to imagine this on a bigger scope.
Yeah, bigger scope and not nearly as expensive.
And
They are
you're
very
not gonna have
expensive.
to wait 2 hours to talk to somebody.
Okay. I guess my concern is making sure that the right people are viewing the information and that it's not going too far out where it gets a little crazy. And no one can actually access the funding through this, correct? It just is monitoring. And with this, we could collect a lot of data as well,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
We'll have real-time monetary data, intraday.
so I guess if we do decide to go this route, next finance or future finance will have data on each department with pretty charts. and-
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll be able to see what our cash flow is coming into the city.
Okay, great. I will yield to my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all.
Thank you, Alder Festa. Before we continue with the queue, I want to recognize Alder Morrison, who has joined us. Alder Walker-Myers and then Alder Punzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alder Festa kind of touched on my question. When I think about technology, I really appreciate your presentation, but I always think about like people. So how does the technology actually, and I do understand, Mr. Chair, that we're supposed to talk about the financials and I'm getting there, how it actually like replaces people. So I'm trying to figure out how many municipalities you deal with that have an actual like tax office, for instance.
I don't know the exact number, but it's a significant part of our business. And we have, not with us, but we actually have marketing materials, et cetera, that are specific to tax collectors.
Okay. And then my next question would just simply be, so if I walk in the tax collector's office and we decided to do this, they're going to have a kiosk where these options are going to be available to them. They can do debit, Apple Pay, and all of that stuff right there at their kiosk. Or is it something that you have to like type into a website or something like I do normally if I pay online?
If they came to the tax office to pay a bill, it would be in a similar fashion. There would be a clerk that would help them. But it would be a much more intuitive and efficient process with our tools for your staff.
Okay.
Now, we can offer kiosks. However, I wouldn't recommend it. They're very expensive, and with our cash to pay, it takes care of that.
You answered my question. As you can see, I care about jobs and people, so that's why I was asking the questions. I wanted to just make sure without Mr. Chair cutting me off.
Well, I appreciate the question because I think, and I've been in the public sector tech business for a long time, right? And I think sometimes the assumption is when we come in with really nice technology that creates efficiencies, it might mean you could do things staff-wise, but no, we're just saying, let's make your staff more efficient so that they can work on more important things.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Walker-Myers. Next on the queue is Alder Punzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any plan by the city or you guys about outreach to the city? Is there a plan to get it out to the public, and you have that in place or planning on it?
I'm going to bring you to a lot of our presentations. Great segue. We actually have a team called CAST. It's the Customer Adoption Success Team. And it's basically a marketing team to help you folks out. Okay. They will work with you and they'll craft a marketing plan, which includes a number of different avenues. It could be on your community television along the bottom. It could be posters within City Hall. It could be mailers, or of course something on your website, etc. All of that, and they'll work with you to customize that.
Yeah, I think that's important. My next question is, and I'm not sure how this works. The city gets a lot of grant money and federal money. How does that, would that change at all?
No, it has nothing to do with this.
Nothing to, okay, all right.
It's completely separate.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Punzo. The queue is open for colleagues who have questions. Alder Fester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was looking through my notes and found a couple more questions, so I appreciate you calling on me again. It's in regard actually to the resident fees. Now, we know that many merchants will absorb the fees if you go shopping, etc. And then there are merchants who ask you to pay the fee. How can we eliminate our residents from paying a fee, especially on their tax bill? Because it can get pretty large.
Right.
Depending on, because our city taxes are high here. And if you're paying them online, that fee can be pretty exorbitant that we're adding. Are we going to look into, because I have here that it is 75K savings for the city. So if that 75K savings can be applied to maybe the fees where we have a wash, and it's just one added bonus for our residents, and also to encourage them to use these apps, how does that all work?
If I could, one of the things that's in the MSA contract, which is not in here, which it had been, we offer via ACH, e-check, 75 cents. And I think that goes up to $20,000 payment. So if they want a low-cost way to pay online electronically, they can pay via e-check. Okay. Taxes are an interesting area because I think by law, the city, you're going to get your money for a tax bill. Okay. And there's yes, you want to make it easy for them to pay electronically, but at the end of the day, they need to pay their tax bill. And the subsidization of that may be not necessary, if that's the right way to put it.
So we actually looked at that, Alder Festa, and if we absorb the fee that the citizens pay just to pay their taxes, it would increase what the city has to pay. So if we're looking at, if it's $75,000 here, then the city would have to come up with $75,000 just for the citizens to make a payment to us. So we would have to eat that cost.
I guess maybe I didn't make my question clear. So we're saving money by using this software and hardware, and that savings is how much?
Are you anticipating making no changes in terms of who pays the fees?
Why don't we just assume right now that there's no change in that?
Okay. Then it would be, right now, the way we calculate it is 71,000 just by us reducing the rate. That is the cost to you. There's another 70,000 that your citizens would save collectively, from reducing that rate as well.
And that's based on an analysis of the present practice for which fees are absorbed and which ones are passed on.
That's correct.
Some are absorbed, some are passed on.
For the tax, all of those fees are passed. Okay, you're currently charging 2.5%. And what is the ACH? Is it $1.50? I don't remember. Well, it is for us. We're proposing 75 cents, but it's coming.
But this is consistent with how we've done it, right? It's actually a lower rate than what we're.
Right,
Yes.
yes.
And I guess that's what I'm getting to, is it will be a lower rate for the residents to be able to pay online, but it would cost us about $70,000 if we were to absorb that cost as a city,
Based on current adoption percentage.
which is fine. We could go with the current and then.
Sure.
And we're also saving though by using this application.
Right.
Technology, we're saving also $70K. So really, if we were to eat that cost, I'm just putting it out there because a lot of the complaints is I want to pay online, but I don't want to pay the additional
Yeah.
fees. When you go get a cup of coffee and you pay with your credit card, usually a cafe will pick up that fee. Now we're actually asking our residents to pay even more to use this service that we are providing them. So I'm just thinking, even down the line, we really need to think about this because, as it is, the fees are high for some folks, and if we want them to utilize this service.
Yeah, and I also want to know, if you look at other municipalities surrounding New Haven, they also pass on that fee to pay online to their citizens. Our fees actually are lower than our competitors throughout other cities and other towns surrounding us. So we're actually at a competitive rate by reducing these rates down to 2.45. But I agree with you. I'm also one of those people that like to pay online, and I don't want to pay the additional 2.5% just to make a credit card payment to pay my taxes. So I always pay with check because that's the e-check because that's the easiest way it's not the easiest way, but it's the cheapest way to do it. So I know what you're saying, and I know where you're getting at. If we could somehow figure out a way to absorb that fee on our citizens so that it's easier for them to pay and make it more valuable for them to pay, we'd have to look at those numbers later on.
I'm just going to interject and say that this is an interesting discussion. It's at the end of the day, it's a policy decision on the part of the city.
Right.
And it's not direct, it's related to the contract, because the contract perhaps offers an opportunity to reconsider some of our policy decisions. But those policy decisions aren't at stake or are not at play just yet with this item. They kind of follow after the item if we decide to adopt it. So it may be something that we might want to take up again. And I think what we should do is just get more information from the city staff to help us understand, as far as the resident service, the resident perspective, interacting with the city, where the resident has to make payments. When are we absorbing it and when are we passing it on? It's probably quite a long list of things. Right? Just think about our fee schedule. That's several pages, right? But it would be good for us in conversation with the city to understand, when is it passed on? When is it absorbed? And does this create an opportunity to maybe change some of those decisions? And what would the implications be for that? So that seems like a good conversation to have coming out of this. Yes.
It also seems if we absorb it, then we would have to look at our cost structure for things, which could increase the fees, right? Because the money has to come from somewhere. So.
That's right. Those are some of the ramifications we would have to understand to make an informed decision on changing any of these policies.
Yeah, and I guess I was just trying to get an idea of what we're saving with this versus what we're paying out. And if it's a wash, then why not consider it? That's all. And it's good to have all this information and question it. So when we meet possibly at a later date to discuss this or possibly change policy, at least we know what we're working with. Right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Alder Festa.
We can work however you want us to. Every single one of your items here can be treated entirely differently, different rates, who pays it, who doesn't pay it, et cetera. So the flexibility is there. Okay.
That's good to know.
If I can go back, this slide here, in this area here talks about the security features of the system. Okay, should have known that.
Thank you for pointing that out. Further questions from colleagues on this item? I'm going to ask a few. I think security, you just addressed that. Reliability is the other side of that. Like, how often does your system crash? When is it not available? Does it have like monthly up hours when it shuts down for maintenance? Can you say anything about those?
There's no scheduled maintenance. It's built with significant redundancy. We can't assume somebody can just stop taking payments at a certain time. So we do have 99.99% uptime. Again, we've never had a breach, and also in my mind, never had in a situation where people were not able to collect money due to our platform. Okay.
So uptime sounds like its system is only off 0.01% of the time.
That's correct.
Okay. Very good, thank you. In order for a resident to take advantage of these services, does one need to install an app on the phone?
No.
Does one need to create an account with a login and a password?
That is an option.
That is an option. Tell me more what you gain from creating it, because I've got about 500 passwords in my life, which is about 492 too many. What do you get from getting a log?
I have an app that keeps track of my passwords, and I've actually forgotten the password to the app.
That's right.
We will offer a number of different ways in which the citizens can interact with the city, depending on what you want as well as what the customer wants. So first, there is what we call a guest experience. They go on, there's no requirement for a login, et cetera. They just have to know something. The bill number, put in their name, maybe they have a customer number, et cetera, and that will bring up whatever the bill they want to pay. Easy. There is a signed-in experience, a registered experience, where they sign in, and now the system knows who they are and what accounts and what bills should be attributed to them. Okay. You may have a number of different properties, one you live in, a couple others are rental properties, et cetera. All of those will appear on your dashboard. You would be able to make payments for all of those at the same time. And that can cross different billing systems as well. Okay, so you'd be able to see your tax bill, a second tax bill, a building permit, a parking ticket, et cetera, so long as it's set up, appropriately. But that's the type of functionality that would create. Now, the third portal experience, if you will, is what I call a domain-specific portal. So, for example, for tax, there may be something with your tax that you would like to say, okay, I'm going to allow the customer to go in and not just pay a bill. I want to see all of the different line items that make up the person's tax bill. I want to see what the rate is. I want to see what the assessed value is. I want to see what the prior assessed value is. I want to see what the payment history is, et cetera. So we can create an experience in that regard. And none of these are, you can do this, but you can't do that. They can all coexist together.
And I also want to add, we'll be working with IT, the city's IT, to make sure that on the homepage of the city of New Haven, that you could actually pay your bills online as well, going through the city of New Haven.
Thank you very much for that information. Just a couple more things. And this is more for the city, I think. There's such a wealth of different services being offered here. What is the current thinking from the city staff about how you will implement it? Turning it on all at once or doing it in a phased approach? What services do they offer that you don't plan to take advantage of? Any comment on that?
Well, I would like everything started to be effective on July 1. And how I'm thinking of how it should work is that we should have the bulk of where our revenue sources come in. Those should be in the first phase, and then maybe have a second phase. Ideally, what I would like to see happen would we would work on the back end to have everything, the whole city go live on July 1. I don't know if that's possible. I don't want anything to crash, so if we have to do it in phases, the first phase would be the bulk of our heaviest revenue sources will be the first tranche of that timing. And I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Are they offering services that we don't plan to take advantage of?
No, I think all the services that they offer is what we need to move forward as a city.
So then my last question is about the process for deciding to opt into this, to propose to opt into this. Because this is a national contract, when I asked you before about whether or not there was an RFP, you said no, because there's a national contract. I just want to understand more, trying to dust off my foggy memory about the procurement rules with the city. Is this considered a sole source, so we don't need to have an RFP? Or is there something else in our procurement ordinance that says if it's tied into a national or state contract, we don't need to do an RFP?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. If it's tied into a national contract, we don't have to go out for RFP. It's kind of like even if we went off of state contract, we wouldn't have to go out for RFP because they already have a state contract with the state.
But I presume that there are other, like, so this vendor says, this is what we can offer you. This is a standard deal that we do with everybody, or everybody in the public sector. I don't know how you structure it. But there are other companies that are offering this too, right? Presumably with their own national contracts, but maybe not. So what led the city to say, this is the group we want to go to?
One, the technology, they had a better technology system and they had more options to pay. And the second part is that they were actually willing to reduce the fees for our current prices. Some of the other vendors didn't want to reduce the fees, or they came in with their own fee and they weren't willing to budge, which actually some of the fees were actually higher than the fees we already have. So my goal was to try to make, one, get state-of-the-art technology, two, make sure that it was citywide and unify the cities, which is something that we don't have right now, and then three, make it cheaper for everybody. And they hit all three of the check boxes.
But there are multiple presentations. I think so, more than one presentation.
And I just want to state for the record that 7-year contract is what you're asking approval for. 3-year renewal after that would have to come back to us. That's our view of it. I think the ordinance supports that as well. That's your understanding as well?
Yes.
Great. Further questions from colleagues on this item? Seeing none, well, thank you for your presentation. Thanks for coming.
Thank
you,
Hayden,
folks.
to give us
Appreciate
this
it.
information. We'd invite you all to take your seats back in the audience. Don't go too far, you two, because I think you might be coming back.
Yes.
Is there a member of the public who wishes to testify on this item? And for a second time, is there a member of the public who wishes to testify on this item? And for a third time, any member of the public wishing to testify on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we will now move to our second and third items, which are the monthly financial reports for the months of November and December. Make sure you had a chance to get up and stretch.
Yes.
And do you have paper to hand out as well?
I do not.
Okay.
I was going to speak for it. Did we need copies?
You didn't, it always depends on what you want to say.
Oh. I did not make copies, but if anyone would like some, it's in me. I was planning to speak to it. It's not, but would you like copies?
Well, it depends on what you're going to say. So why don't you start,
Give a high level overview.
give a high level overview, and if you have a piece of paper that is important,
Yes.
then we'll have our staff photocopy it
Okay.
and give it to us. So-
Okay.
So that's what we're doing.
Excellent. And should I go right ahead? Do I have to say my name and address?
Why don't you say your name and address again? That would be
Shannon
good.
McHugh, 925 Roanoke Road, Waterbury, Connecticut.
Ron Gizzi, 219 Rainbow Terrace, Houston.
just so I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the December because as the year goes on, you get more and more information, and we really weren't showing too much of, not a lot of variances as of November. But as of December, some of the variances start to show up, and I would like to point out that at this point in the year, we are projecting that total revenues would come in around $682 million. And the expenditures would be coming in at 684. So we are looking at a little bit of a deficit of about $1.6 million at this point in time. So the main drivers of this are, we had a little bit of an overage in self-insurance, and that's for all of our liability insurance. The prices continue to rise, and right now the overage is pretty small. It's about $52,000 with most of the contracts encumbered. So we don't expect it to increase significantly between now and the end of the year. But there is a small deficit there. And then the biggest variance is in the Department of Education. And I take that number right from the Department of Education's monthly report, which I get off of the public schools website. And they are showing that they are going to exceed their budget by $4.9 million. We have $3 million in assigned fund balance, which we had decided earlier in the year. So we did expect that there would be some overage. And it's still early in the year. There's still, last year, I think at this time, they were projecting a large deficit as well, but they were able to bridge that by the end of the year pretty significantly. So there's still time for them to make adjustments. So we're not sure, that's where they're going to end up, but that's where they're showing right now, where they're showing their shortfall. Some of the revenues are doing, the property taxes are doing well. They're tracking well to budget. So there's an overage there. We do see that investment income is doing very well. We do think that the investment income will likely exceed the budgeted number. We project about $300,000 based on what we're seeing now. And then miscellaneous and other revenues are doing quite well as well. They're coming in a little bit above budget. And then we do think, based on some conversations with the buildings department, that we'll see more building revenue come in as well. So that should be a pretty strong number. We kept the projection conservative at this stage. But those are most of the variances that are driving that number. There's, we don't like to see a deficit at this point in the year, but we do think that the budget is fairly conservative. We do know that there are salary savings. We within the report, we do quantify how many vacancies there are. And currently the value of those vacancies are, in the report, it's $10.4 million. Now, we don't think year end it's going to be $10.4 million because we did not make adjustments. This is just the value of vacancies. For instance, the nurse contract that was approved because the health department has trouble hiring nurses, and so they contracted out for $2.8 million. You would take that off. We also know that the police contract was just signed, so there some of the salary savings in the police budget line items will help absorb the costs of the salary increase for the police contract and the retro payment. There's also, I actually did an estimate today about like how much we really think we'll have vacancy savings by the end of the year once we absorb the police contract and taking into account the nurses contract. I mean, we don't think it'll be $10 million, but we think there'd be at least a variance of about $4 million, rough estimate. So I'd like to point that out. And then there are ways to control spending throughout the year. We can limit some of the spending from now to the end of the year. There's only one area where some of the departments are pretty tight in the budget is contractual services, because all the contracts have been encumbered. So we don't think that number will grow, but, you know, there's not a lot of room with a lot of the contraction service budget line items. So that's where it stands right now. We're keeping a track on overtime, because as the police contract goes into place, it will have an effect on the overtime. We're doing some analysis on that now. The police department has averaged about $300,000 in overtime per week. And so it's been very consistent. So we're going to keep our eyes on that and look for any increases as the contract. I mean, we know it's going to increase, but we do believe, you know, we could absorb that. There's also $1.7 million in the labor reserve. 1.7. So all in all, we still think, you know, it's early in the year, and by showing a $1.6 million deficit at this point, we believe that we can rein that in. I mean, we don't have control over the Board of Education, but, you know, all of our discretionary spending, we can certainly take a look at and keep tight controls on.
Okay, is that your presentation?
That is my presentation.
Thank you very much for that. We'll now ask colleagues if they have questions about the monthly financial reports, high-level summary that we were provided. Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to get my head around where there could possibly be any savings.
In the salaries lines?
No, you mentioned that there would be possible, like, to tighten up departments. How is that possible?
There's still some discretionary spending. I mean, we can keep, you know, we're tightening up our accounts payable. We're working with UI quite a bit to really keep a tab on our energy costs.
And we have no control, we have no control over the Board of Ed, supposedly.
Right.
Depends on who you ask.
Mm-hmm.
The state will say we do. But you talk about the UI bill, there's not a school in the city that doesn't have lights out at 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
All the schools are lit up. And who's paying for that? We are.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm making a comment more than but it's just for discretionary spending. I don't know how that would even make an impact on what we would really need to save outside than perhaps a few $100,000 at the very most, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, but we have to make sure that we run a tight ship. Like, the reason why I'm bringing up the accounts payable and the invoicing and all of that is we're trying to improve our processes so we see, like, exactly how much is spent. That's part of the reason why we liked the last presentation, because that transparency is really, really important, both in the revenue coming in and what's going out. So we're putting together more reports so that we can monitor the budget. We can look for areas of any, you know, waste and try to work with the departments.
Because, you know, a couple of years ago, they were like, no more paper, don't use so much paper.
Mm-hmm.
No bottled waters, you know, let's cut down on that. And
Mm-hmm.
it just makes for a tougher working environment,
Mm-hmm.
rather than something that will be effective in cost savings. But I don't want to belabor that point, just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on where there will be a substantial savings that would make sense. But I do agree that we should tighten the ship, and I appreciate you doing that work and making sure that the departments are not being frivolous in their spending. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Furlow, and I think it might be instructive for the committee and for our new Director of Management of the Budget to do a little research on past cost control measures that her predecessor oversaw, some of which we heard described in meetings in years past, you know, extra scrutiny on other contractual service lines across the city's agencies, you know, deciding not to renew memberships for subscriptions. But I think it's always good for us to hear more description of what those options are and what they amount to. You know, because at the end of the day, if you work for the city, you got to get paid. There's certain hard costs that are not going to go anywhere. So what is the discretionary portion of the budget? It's always an interesting question.
Well, we're looking for efficiencies, in many ways. The Pimentis presentation was one of those efficiencies in how the revenues are coming in and how quickly we can get them, how quickly we can see how much cash we have available. We're also looking for those efficiencies on the expenditure side. You know, how can we do things differently? Where can we rein in costs? How can we pay attention to, you know, all the purchase orders out there and if we're going to use them and how much is really necessary? At the end of the year, you know, they do cancel whatever's left in the purchase orders and you see that goes back into the budget. We're doing trend analysis as well, part of the budget. We're preparing for the budget, the FY26 budget. And we're looking at the trend of what was budgeted in prior years and where the expenditures actually came in. And we have a 3-year window that we're really spending a lot of time on. I think if you get too further back, it's not as accurate. And you do have to consider there was a pandemic. And so we're not going much beyond that because we don't think it's typical. But, you know, really looking at each budget line and where was the overspending, where was the variances, and really trying to ensure we know what to expect in the years coming. We're also, you know, projecting out the cost of, you know, when you look at the utilities, the cost of electricity, trying to make sure we project that out. And we're doing things also to purchase electricity in a better way. That's where, you know, a lot of the work is being done right now with the controller as well. And really scrutinizing those bills and some of our larger expenditures. We did do the bond refunding, that was budgeted, so we did get the $1.3 million in savings. So that's on target. So we're doing everything we can to rein in costs.
Thank you. Next on the queue is Alder Festa, and after that, the queue is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I was bothered by when you said you had to get the Board of Ed numbers off of their website.
Oh, yes, I use their report.
Do you have conversations with them?
Weekly.
Okay, so those numbers came from them.
Yes, and I didn't mean to say that in a negative way. My point is when you do the report, I take their disclosure because this is their formal disclosure, and so we use that.
Okay. No, when you said it, I'm like, wait, don't you actually meet with them? And I was like, don't tell me they're kicking you out.
No, we actually have a very good working relationship.
Okay.
I did not, if it came off negative, that was not my intention at all. We meet weekly. We discuss all the issues that we need to. We're working on getting all the state grant reimbursement for the school construction. It's been a big project that we're working collaboratively on. So I would say that we have a very good working relationship. My point was I was using their official disclosure because I didn't want to adjust their numbers from where I sit. I'm trusting their disclosure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Also regarding, you mentioned the police department has about $300K per week of overtime. With the new signed contract, that's probably going to get significantly, I don't want to say significantly higher because we really don't know, but it is going to go, it's going to increase due to some of the logistics of the contract. And I know you said you're kind of doing some trends with that. We just, I guess maybe this is more of a comment, we just need to be on top of it because yes. $300K per week is already a very high amount, never mind once the new contract kicks in.
Yes.
We just got the new rates, actually. Today, we got the new rates that will be put in place. So it's a little bit early right now, but we'll get to that point.
Also, do you have the fire department overtime?
Yes, that is in here as well. Fire department overtime. Currently, the fire department overtime is, they were budgeted 5.3, and we projected that they would exceed that based on the trend, and that we would likely do a transfer at some point. The current amount, excuse me, I should have brought my reading glasses.
I have some in my bag.
Yeah, the whole overtime should be in here.
Is that on 14?
Pardon?
Page 14.
Yeah, but that's my projection. I projected the thing to be over. I think we project they will be over by $1 million. That was my projection based on what we're seeing. Yeah, the actual thing.
And I guess I'm assuming that's due to the number of vacancies that we have.
That's correct.
Although they have some classes, I believe, that are
That's correct, yes.
going in,
Yep.
and so hopefully that will help. And I guess without having past numbers in front of me, how have these trends changed from last year or 2 years ago?
It's fairly consistent. There's been, the attrition has been high for several years. The attrition causes the increase in overtime, or is, a driver of the overtime. But then it's also a driver of salary savings, which has been sort of offsetting the overtime, but clearly, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio because overtime's time and a half. But, yeah, that's how we're seeing savings in the salary line, overages in the overtime line, and by the end of the year, it's been pretty close overall.
Okay. What are we doing regarding utility costs? What are we doing to try and cut those? I mean, I remember, and y'all could remind me if I'm wrong, but I remember at one point we were going all LED, taking all these measures to save on lighting, all of that. Where do we stand with that? And, as far as solar goes, LED, et cetera.
We'll be reviewing the capital plan to talk about some of those things. To be honest, the amount of where we're spending most of our time is looking at the billing. And I know the controller is working with a firm that is looking at our electric bills and finding, we've been getting refunds for certain things. Like we determined that we were being charged taxes on a couple of our bills that we should not have been charged taxes on, and they just point that out. And we go back to UI and we get credits for those things. We've also been looking at exactly what we're being billed for, how we're being billed, and we are ensuring that it's accurate. We've just got a new list of accounts that we are going to review for Southern Connecticut Gas to make sure that those are accurate as well. We are looking for ways to ensure that we're paying in a timely fashion and smoothing out our invoicing process, because if we don't do that, then we get charged late fees, and we do not want to pay late fees. So we just worked really closely with UI, and they have reversed some of the late fees that we had accumulated. I think that, that's the main thing. We're trying to make sure it's accurate. And then we also work with Steve Winter on energy procurement. We have done a little forward purchasing to lock in a rate. We don't want to lock in too much, because then you're stuck with a rate that if it declines, but sort of hedging where the rates may go. And we're working, as diligently as we can to make sure, at least, first and foremost, that we're paying for what we're actually using, and that it's accurate, and that we're not getting any late charges by smoothing out our invoicing process, which seems like you should, our bills from UI are very complicated, and there's a lot of them, so we're trying to make it easier.
I can only imagine. Okay, I think that's all I have. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're also looking into, some of our bills are on direct energy, so that's a different service provider. So we're looking at ones that aren't on direct energy and switching those over. So that'll be some kind of savings as well.
Okay, so direct energy would be,
Just like a different provider, and it's only on the delivery. It's not on the billing, so that part would be the same. It's just on the kilowatt hours that we would save some.
Purchasing the electricity
Yeah.
from someone
from a
other than
different-
UI,
Right.
UI must transmit it to
yes,
us.
Yeah.
okay, yes, we have that.
Yeah.
And I guess, sorry, Mr. Chair, just one more thing. We have that cell.
I mean, the fuel cell.
Fuel cell,
The
yeah.
fuel cell, is that an operation? I can't remember. I thought at one point it wasn't, but we were working on bringing it online.
Let's follow up on that with our city engineer.
Okay,
He'd be better able to answer that.
okay. I was thinking where the cost savings are
I'd be happy to follow up.
utilizing. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Festa. Further questions from colleagues on these monthly financial reports? November and December, most especially December. Seeing none, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate
Thank
it. Excuse me. Is there a member of the public who wishes to testify on these monthly financial reports? And for a second time, if you would like to testify on this monthly financial report, please come forward. And for a third time, is there a member of the public who wishes to testify on either of these, any of these items that we've heard so far this evening? Seeing none, a motion would be appropriate.
I make a motion.
Yes, sir. Alder Punzo. You're closing the
I
public
guess I
portion.
make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
A motion's been made to close the public portion. It's been seconded. Any discussion of that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion passes. The public portion is closed. Can I have a motion to recommend that the Board of Alders read and file items 2 and 3?
So
Second,
moved,
so
Mr. Chair.
moved. Second.
That motion has been moved and second. Any discussion of the motion that we recommend items 2 and 3 be read and filed? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion carries. They will move forward as read and files to the full board. Alder Festa.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to move item number 1.
Second.
Item 1 has been moved and second. Discussion of the motion. You're the maker of the motion. You get to go first. Alder
Okay.
Festa.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. This type of technology is right up my alley. I think it simplifies matters on many levels. Once you're used to it, it's hard to go back to even writing a check. I'm in favor of this item. I think I'm not so against a 7-year agreement, provided that those fees with another vendor possibly don't decrease. As long as the fees stay the same and anyway, I won't babble about that. And you know how I feel about the fees for charging residents, but I also like the flexibility that was mentioned by Pimentis, that they can actually be flexible with a fee structure. So if we want to charge those fees on, let's say, permitting, we could, but if we want to eat the cost for taxpayers, we possibly can't. So I like that flexibility. It doesn't have to be streamlined with one fee structure for everything. I think in the end, it just simplifies things, and the transparency is of utmost importance. I think we're going to have much more accurate data as to really what's coming in and even actually what's going out. So anything with data versus, crunching our numbers by hand, the old accounting way, is much easier and transparent, and hopefully we'll see that as we move forward, if we all agree with this plan. So I'm in support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Festa. Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in favor of giving this a favorable recommendation to the full board. What we are actually doing is just expanding our services to our residents. It's good to note that people can still come in and pay by check or by cash to the tax office, should they so wish. And I imagine they can still pay cash at some of our other places that do receive cash, like Lighthouse Park. And so this is really just extending some of the services, and I think that's a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Furlow. Further discussion of the item, Alder Bunzo.
Mr. Chair, I'm also in favor of this, based on the savings for the city and also for the real-time data at the end of each day, which is, I think, is important for every department. So I'm in favor of this item.
Thank you, Alder Bunzo. Next is Alder Hamilton, followed by Alder Walker-Meyer.
Thank you, Chair Marchand. I'm also in favor of the item. The reconciliation process at the end of the day of payments, that's a good plus for us to see what's coming in, what's going out. So with that, and also some savings to the city and hopefully to our residents, I'm in support of the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Hamilton. Alder Walker-Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of the item because the way they explained that the technology won't actually replace people, because I think that's really important. I do understand that having everything streamlined makes sense and not having all the departments using different forms of payments and having different fees and everything. But I was really concerned that, because to me, when I heard it at first, you can go to Walgreens or somewhere and pay cash. So I was thinking, what is the point of having the tax office? Because it seemed like everything was being taken away. So I was really glad to hear that they have other municipalities that have a tax office and things of that nature, and it's just streamlined the process, and they'll help people coming in do accept all the forms of payment. So I'm in favor of the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Walker-Meyer. Further discussion from colleagues on this item? Seeing none, I'll just offer my thoughts. I'm in favor of the item. The only thing that I'm thinking about is that the actual order resolution would be better if the exact term of the contract were specified, as opposed to just multi-year. Multi-year, of course, triggers automatic approval, so it's a key term to include. But I just found that I would like city staff to include the amounts of contracts and the terms of contracts, the lengths of them, in the actual legislation. Now, is it strictly necessary? Well, probably not, because there is a contract to which this refers that lays that out, but it's better for us to have that information in the actual resolution. But because I'm chairing the meeting, I'm not sitting down writing the language, which I used to do when I was vice chair. So I think I may decide to add that as a whereas clause or something before the second reading, and I would do that in consultation with the staff to make sure that I'm getting it correct. But just because there are some city staff still here, when you come to us with contracts, put the numbers in it, the length, the amount. It's just good to have in the actual resolution. So, but that's a detail. I'm in favor of the item. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. It will move forward with a favorable recommendation. And before a motion to adjourn is appropriate, I just want to remind colleagues that next month begins the budget process. You have seen in your email a schedule for all of the meetings that we'll have in the months of March, April, and May. I hope that within the next week or so, we'll be able to update that calendar with the actual list of departments that are going for those workshops and what days they'll be going. We're going to be talking with the city staff to lay that out so that those workshops make sense and they kind of hang together. So expect that soon. And eat your Wheaties to be ready for another budget process. Saying that, a motion to adjourn is appropriate.
So moved.
The second.
Second?
Motion to adjourn has been made second. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion passes. We are adjourned.